¿Tienen todos sus audífonos puestos? Ya vamos a empezar.
Är det dags att starta?
Nu kan du börja, Ana-Karin. Bienvenida, Ana-Karin, al grupo.
Thank you very much. I'm Ana-Karin, and in my everyday life I live here in Stockholm and work at the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions. So I have been invited here today to talk about as you can see, the code of good practice for civil participation in the decision-making process. And I also will, in the next hour, I will talk about a special kind of meeting that is called Learning Village. And that is all about how to build bridges between the local authority and citizens. But this hour, I will start with talking about the code of good practice and also some words about participatory leadership, governance, new public governance. So I was instructed that you will be here and are able to say hello. Is it true? Are you there? I can't hear anybody yet.
Yes, so we are here. We are about 15 people. I think that we can start to present ourselves by putting on the mic and the camera one by one. Let's start with Andrea over there.
This is some kind of technique test. I can't hear anybody yet. Is it okay? Can you hear my voice, everybody?
¿Pusieron el micrófono también? La cámara y el micrófono que está al lado del botoncito de la cámara.
Ja. Natalie, förklara dem bara.
Activar el micrófono.
No, pues yo te escucho. ¿A mí me escucharon? No.
Sí, no. Okay, good morning. I am Andrés Mauricio Valdivieso. I am a professor for the International Department of the University Pontifical Xavierian, Bogotá. Thank you for all.
Okay. Hello, André.
¿Listo? Good morning.
No escuchas nada. ¿Está bien conectado?
Good morning. My name is Alberto Flores. I work in the public administration. Happy for work in this project. Thank you.
Okay.
Pero ahí no escuchabas en esa última.
Good morning. My name is Alfredo Rosero Vera. I am advisor del Departamento Nacional de Planeación, Government of Colombia.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Patricia Muñoz, docente en el área de participación política y ciudadana de la Pontificia Universidad Xavieriana.
Good morning.
No me veo, pero...
Buenos días. Soy Carlos Gómez de la
subdirección de género del NP. I work for national planning on gender topics.
Okay. Good morning, Carlos.
Hello, you hear me? My name is David Suarez. I'm professor of the Political Science and International Relations faculty. I'm here for this course. I thank you for this meeting and your conference.
Hello, David.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Fabián Acuña, professor of political science. Thank you for your time.
Nice to see you, Fabián.
Hello, good morning. I'm Daniel Gomez. I'm an advisor in transparency and fight against corruption in the National Planning Department.
Hello, Daniel.
Hello.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, my name is Catalina Marulanda and I work for the National Planning Department.
Good morning, Catalina.
Hello, good morning. My name is Angelo Montilla. I'm advisor for the National Planning Department and working for in topics of electoral democracy.
Hello, nice to meet Angelo.
Hello, me too.
Is there anybody left?
I think it's my turn.
Hello, I'm Natalie. Oh, it's you. Hello, I'm Natalie Becker. I'm project coordinator in the FOINCIDE project. Nice to see you, Ana-Karin.
Hello, Natalie. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Helga. I'm an advisor on foreign affairs and international cooperation in the National Planning Department.
Hello, Helga.
Maybe I can also introduce myself. Hi, Ana-Karin. Hi, I'm Lucia Costa. I'm a technical project manager for this project, and I'm currently sitting now in Uruguay. Good to see all of you here.
Yeah. Hi, Lucia.
And finally, hi, I'm Paula Cruz. I'm here an advisor in political and society here in Pontifical Xavierian, and I work in the continuing education department.
Hello, Paula.
Hello.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for hearing your voices, all of you. It's really nice to having this contact on the other side of the world and instantly. It's quite amazing. Well, I'm going to start today to talk about the code of good practice. So I just, yeah. Okay, so I'm not really sure about the technique, but I try. Do you have the presentation, all of you? Can you see it in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Yes, about the code now. The code of good practice, it's kind of an European code. It's kind of a manual how to work with civil society if you're a local authority or if you're a regional authority, a county council or things like that. It also could be if you are a state and if you want to develop good relationship with civil society, you can use this code of good practice. And the background, why it was introduced and why it was developed, it was because of the lack of attention from citizens toward the political process. People felt that they really haven't any say. And people also around Europe has been testifying that it's impossible or difficult to access the political process. It's about lack of trust in a way. So it was a proposal to develop an instrument to support the International Forum for the Future of Democracy. It was a forum, a big event taking place here in Sweden about democracy in 2007. And lots of NGOs around Europe were gathered and people were discussing what to do. And this was just a proposal to start to develop some kind of code, some kind of instrument, how to start to behave, to find better play rules for both organizations and local authorities, how to meet and how to develop good relationships. So NGOs, non-governmental organizations all around Europe started to gather and started to write and build a document. And they were sharing their experiences, what work when they meet with the authorities, when they meet with politicians and officials on the local level and regional level, and they were discussing what will work or what doesn't work. So here would be a good manual how to do this kind of dialogue meetings, and how to do collaboration. So it was all built on actual experiences. And in the year 2009, this document was approved by the Council of Europe. And if you haven't heard about the Council of Europe, it contains politicians from cities and from regions from the whole Europe, even from Russia, Ukraine, and other countries that are thought of as part of the Europe continent. It is not the EU, European EU, it's not that, it's Europe as a whole. So the Council of Europe and politicians from the regions and from the cities all around Europe, they approved this document and thought it was a good thing to have. And the idea is that it is an added value. It's kind of an official support. Now there is this official support by all the member states. And the code, in a way, have created awareness of how to start to behave better when you as an authority meet with civil society organizations. So it's a way to start to develop better relationship. It's also kind of a tool how to experiment, how to make use of this tool and how to develop your relationships with organizations at the local level. So this document, I don't know if Lucia has shared the document. It is also translated in Spanish, I think.
Yes, I sent it, and yes, I sent it because there isn't. I sent it to Pierre, and I think he sent it to all the participants. So you can find it. I sent both the links, so you can find it on internet and the PDF document.
Good. So you have the document and the structure of the code is it's equal to the document. You have a part that is the introduction and the background, and then you have some words about the purpose with the code and also who it is aiming for, who are the target groups. And as I mentioned, it's both for local authorities, for cities and small municipalities, it's for politicians and officials, and it's for the regional level and even for the national level. And it's also something for the local civil society organizations to use and to learn how to develop their democracy skills, actually. So you could use it as kind of study, making use of it in classes and learn how to work democratically in your own organization. Okay, so there is a framework for participation. There are some parameters, and there are some words about the principles, about participation, about how to create trust, why it's important, about that you need to take responsibility, that you need to be transparent, and that you also need to have the, what do you say, you need to be respecting the independence of organizations, of civil society organizations. So they shouldn't be very strong connected to the state to own the possibility of having conversations and having their say, but they can, the idea of the independence is very important. And there are some words about preconditions, how you need to frame this kind of work, how you need to frame dialogue and dialogue meetings and dialogue processes and also collaboration, what you need to do. And then there are, on the fourth part of the document, there are some words about how to participate and levels of participation and stages of political decision-making process, and also a matrix. And I will talk a little bit more about these stages, these levels of participation. So I move on. So the levels of participation in this document are from low to high. The first stage and the lowest level of participation is information. It's one-way direction, one-way information, one-way talk in a way. And this is often the case from public sector, that you inform organizations. They haven't really got any say about things. And that's the lowest level of participation. And then you have consultation, and it occurs often, as in Sweden's case, it occurs often when the politicians have developed some ideas of what would be the best proposals, and they ask organizations to have their say if it should be the first proposal or the second proposal. So that is kind of a very low way of consultation. But consultation can also be made in the very, very beginning, before you have started to having any ideas of what to work with politically. And I will return to that aspect later on. Information, and the second level is consultation. And then you have dialogue, and that's the two-way conversation. It's about both expressing your thoughts and ideas, and also about listening very carefully. It is not a debate. It is not a bater. It is listening carefully and also being very carefully about what you need to say in the right moment and what you need to put forward. That's dialogue. And then you have the highest level. And in this document, in the code, it is called partnership. And it goes both ways, and it's about taking responsibility, feeling ownership, and also caring for the whole thing together as partners. Okay? That's the levels of participation. And then you have the political decision-making process. And as you can see, this circle, well, let's see if I have a, yeah, here it goes. The first step is the agenda setting step. It is, what kind of ideas could there be how to solve this question? What kind of thinking is it out there? What will be put on the table just to start to look on this political issue? Then is the step when you formulate proposals. And in the third step, you have the decision, actual decision making. And in the fourth step, you implement the decision. And in the fifth step, you monitor it. How will it work? Is it functioning all right? And in the sixth and last step, you could just look at it and see, have it worked good? Do we need to reformulate our ideas? Should we take a new step? And then you move over back to the agenda setting again. So this is the circle, the political decision-making process. If you want to question, if you have questions already, you can just let me know. But I think, yeah. So for every step, you should think about the definition. What could be the NGO input here? And what would be the public responsibility? And what kind of tools and mechanisms would you use here? What would be good tools, good methods, good mechanisms? What would be the appropriate ones for each of these steps? Well, let's move on. Have you taken a look on this matrix? It is kind of putting together both of the processes I was mentioning. Here you have the levels of participation, information, information, consultation, dialogue, partnership. And here on this side you have the steps in the political decision-making process. So you have agenda setting, formulating of proposals, decision, implementation, monitoring, and reformulate. And this matrix is really interesting. I like it a lot because now I start to think, if we're going to start to work with the new issue, for example, in a small municipality I know, where I have my cottage, it could be about the countryside and what people need, what kind of services people need out there. And you could start on the agenda setting step. How could we involve the local civil society organizations here? Should they only have the information one way? Should we start to consult some of the organizations Would there be some really, really nice ideas out there? Should we maybe have a dialogue, a two-way conversation? Should we start to listen very carefully about for the agenda, what could be done? Or should we already here start to ask, are there any actors out there? Are there any organizations that would like to take a lead, that would like to be kind of responsible in the process ahead? And you can move on to the next step when you are formulating proposals, when you have maybe have been listening very carefully to different organizations. You can start to question yourself, should we maybe have some kind of dialogue also here? When we have almost formulated proposals, should we involve organizations to start to formulate the proposals together? Should we try to maybe write them together in partnership? And in the next step, you have the decision. And maybe here, you need to do it by yourself in the local authority. Maybe here it's very difficult to involve the organizations. But in the next step, during the implementation, when you have already decided about some new ways of services to the inhabitants in the area, maybe now you would like to go really step into partnership with some organization. Maybe they could be very good in resolving some of the service issues here. Maybe they could be deliverers. Maybe we need to just be in a dialogue and so on. And also, here you have the monitoring part step. And you can ask yourself, should we listen to the people out there? Is the services, the new services, are they really, really working? Who can answer that question? Is it me as a local authority, or is it maybe the organizations out there? Do I need to have some kind of dialogue with the people? Just to listen, is the service, the new service working? And then you have the last step, and it's about reformulating. If you have listened carefully and people are telling stories about the good service or the bad service, then it's the next step and you need to start to reformulate. What could be the wise next step ahead to have better service? So this matrix, you can use it when you are planning to step into a new part in the new political matter. You can also use it if you are going to start to collaborate with organizations. And you can, of course, use it in school if you want to teach and if you want to educate people how to be involved in the democracy. And you can have conversations about all these different steps everywhere in the matrix, what it really means for them. And you can learn from them, and they can learn from you. So you can also have different levels of participation when you are teaching. So this is the matrix. And I think it's, for me, it's very interesting. Any thoughts so far? Do you have any questions, reflections? Yeah, you can also write you can write questions here on the chat if you want. Lucia, Natalie, what would you? Is there any question?
Hi, Ana-Karin. Yeah, one thing that you can say when you talk about involving the civil society organizations, like in partnership, who is accountable? how can accountability be like, if an organization is to take the lead, how can one, how can one trust it, and how is the accountability in such an organizational model?
Of course, it depends on what kind of responsibility you have. I guess a wise way to do this is to start to build relationship first, and start to learn who is this, who are involved in this organization, what are they doing, what is their engagement, what are they good at, and what can they really master to do, what are they capable of doing. So you need to get to learn a little bit more about each other as partners first, before you start to write some kind of agreement. So that the preliminary dialogue is very, very important. And actually in Sweden, we are starting more and more to form partnership with civil society organizations, both in the local level and in the regional level. And it always starts with a lot of having conversations to get to learn about each other first. And then you need to start to having conversations about what kind of issue is it here that is the burning question. What do we really, what can we see both of us that is important to start to engage in. And for instance, in Sweden there is a lot of refugees now in these days, and there are lots of words about how to help refugees in different matters. And this is kind of conversations people or the local authorities are having together with civil society organizations. What can you do and what can we do? And how could we make a better service of it together? There is a question.
It's a question in Spanish. Do you suggest any methodology for identifying the problems to work with? This question is for us to start thinking about the definition, the prioritization, and the tools that are appropriate in each case. That is one question. But I would also like to ask you, Ana-Karin, because in Colombia there are a lot of laws on how the municipality has to create a relationship with the civil society and how the local governments have to relate with civil societies. And what's interesting is that we don't have any such laws in Sweden. It's not mandatory to involve the civil society, right?
No.
Or how does it work in Sweden? So that's two questions then. First Patricia's question and then my question.
Yeah, okay. Concerning different methods, I guess the first step when you are starting to get to know with an organization what they are capable of doing, you need to just identify by yourself in your municipality or the city or the city district. You need to identify what is an important burning issue for us, and is there any organization out there that is really engaged in that kind of question, and then you invite them for a dialogue meeting just to get to know each other a little bit more, and just having an open conversation and listen very carefully and start to be rather open-minded about what you see, what kind of problems you see as an authority, and listen very carefully for what their organizations, what they can see concerning the specific issue. And then you can start to take the next steps. But I guess when I start to talk about the learning village, about 20 minutes from now, maybe you will get some more hints of what kind of dialogue methods you could use. Concerning the responsibility, public sector, and the relationship between public sector and civil society in Sweden, it is always the case that the public sector and the local authority have lots of responsibilities, and mostly they keep the responsibility even when they are collaborating with civil society organizations. So they can't really let go if they have the social service responsibilities, social health things, health care and stuff like that. It is regulated in the law, in the Swedish law, so they can't just leave it to the organization. They need to keep the responsibility, and that is also about accountability. So when they start to collaborate with civil society organizations, they start very lightly first, take very light steps in the beginning, because they can't just let go of their responsibility in Sweden. But this is different context, so I guess the most important thing is to identify a common issue that both sides, that the partners really see as a concern for all. So I stop there.
Sorry, Ana-Karin. Here's another question in Spanish, and Fabian says the same direction as Patricia's question. Is there a methodology to prioritize? In Colombia, the majority of the municipalities have different lacks. Simultáneas vitales. They lack different things
at the same time
that are vital. Yeah, like basic saneamiento in English.
Bath and water and
violence, health, education. All of these areas are important, and the resources are scarce. How does this code, how does it prioritize? How does it help to prioritize?
It doesn't. No, it's just a help how to start to develop relationships and how to start having a good relationship, and from both sides. So it's not about prioritizing. You need to do that in the local level or wherever you do it, maybe on the national level, but this is not a tool for priorities. No. I just keep on now. I think I should show you some more pictures. So I want to talk a little bit about dialogue, agreements, co-creation, and partnership, collaboration, if you call it. And it's a thinking about how you look at citizens. Are they customers or are they really citizens? So let's move on. As I can see when I look out my window or when I look at other countries all around Europe, there is an international trend in public sector, and it's about how to handle welfare demands and economic threats at the same time, because Sweden is seen upon as a very rich country, but our economy, our public economy, is going down, and the demands, welfare demands, is going up. So what to do? So the question is, if we look at this situation as a zero-sum game, what to do? Should we increase the taxes? We have already very, very high taxes in Sweden. Should we rationing? Should we build more queues to the welfare services? Should we let people wait longer to have their surgery or whatever? Should we have more of fees in the public sector? Should we ask people to pay more for each service, each delivery of service? Or should we stop to deliver? Should we just start to prioritize much harder? Meanwhile, all our citizens demand for a higher standard of welfare. So what should we do? That's the big question in Sweden now. What to do? But you can also think of this, is it really a zero-sum game? More and more people are saying that we need to move, as I have written here, that we need to move away from a public system where citizens are passive customers, that we should move to another system where we look at the citizens as active co-creators. Some people say that we live under our means, that we really doesn't make use of all the resourceful people that are living in this country, because we look at them as just consumers. So let's move ahead. Since 2008, we have a national agreement in Sweden. It's between the central government and my organization, the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions, and the NGOs on the national level, civil society organization. Oh, wow, what is happening here? Okay. So it happened in 2008 that we was signing an agreement. It wasn't me that was signing, it was our top politicians. But it was a big step. We didn't realize it at that moment, but it has been very important for developing good relationship with civil society ever since then. It was all about to strengthen the non-profit organizations, to build self-reliance and to strengthen their independent role as a democratic voice, because most of these organizations, they can see that when things are really wrong in the society, they can just, if they let out their voice, if they just tell the authorities what is wrong, we can learn. But if nobody out there dare to say what they really see is wrong, then we don't learn that much. So it's very, very important we see as that. But also this democratic voice is also threatened these days, because we have nationalistic parties, fascists and neo-Nazi organizations that are scaring people, that are scaring organizations. And this is a very, very bad situation. We really need to defend this independent role as the organizations have now. So we need to defend them, and we need to make room for their voices to be heard. And we think it's also important to make use of people in these organizations. And we believe they really strongly can contribute to the development of society. So, in the next step, we also think that this agreement could help in developing a greater diversity of welfare providers. We can see some of these organizations are really good at delivering welfare services. It's about health and it's about social care. I move ahead. And this agreement was formed by big dialogue meetings, 10 meetings, and lots of smaller groups within the big meetings. We have smaller dialogue groups, and we also had a recommendation group that was formulating this national agreement, document. And there are some main principles in this agreement, in this document, that is signed by all partners. And it's about autonomy, independence, as I mentioned. It's about the principle of dialogue, not only one-way conversation, but two-way, that you need to both have your say and also have to listen. And it's not about debating, hitting something in the other's head, but really listen and start to build upon each other's ideas and thoughts. It's about the principle, it's about the quality of delivery of services, and it's also to build relationship with continuity, not only short-term relationship, not only learn to know each other in short term, but in longer term. It's about defending the transparency. You need to be open when you start to relate to another partner, if it is public and if it's the civil society organization. You need to be open-minded and you need to be transparent. And it's also the sixth principle, it's about respecting diversity, that it really should be a diverse civil society that you relate to, not only just a one and only organization you love, but also other kind of organizations should have their say. That's democracy. So everybody need to just remember these principles and starting to act and starting to live by them. And during these 10 years we have had this national agreement. Actually, people have started to learn to know each other and started to trust each other. And it's all about starting to collaborate. When you collaborate, when you meet a lot of times, little by little you start to trust each other too. So this has been quite a trip for everybody that has been part of this national agreement. I can see there is a question there. What is the difference between the dialogue groups and the recommendation group? The recommendation group, when it was during the period when the document, the agreement was formulated, and the recommendation group was representatives of the three partners, and they were just recommending what it should be written in the document. They were in the last step of the chain in a way. So we started with huge dialogue meetings and then smaller dialogue groups that were having conversations about certain issues in the agreement, and then you had the recommendation. That was just trying to formulate something that everybody could agree with. There is another question.
Yes, in Spanish. Just let me. In Colombia, a great problem is the lack of political will of the local politicians. Does the matrix work with this in direct form with this lack or with this problem? What kind of role does the citizen play? What kind of role does the citizen play with the incidents and the construction of the public opinion? How can they contribute to that? in a context where there is high apathy to say high lack of will from the citizens in the public theme, and there is a lack of there is a lack of interest in in politics and a great distrust in authorities.
Yeah, actually, in Sweden there was not that much interest in this agreement in the beginning either. But I think it's important that somebody, some persons, some key persons take the lead and step forward and start to create something new, and then start to live by the words and create an example. And that's the way it happened in Sweden. We hadn't got this agreement isn't a rule, isn't anything that is mandatory. It's just by free will. So it's an inspiration for many municipalities. And little by little people are starting to realize that this is important. And actually, for 2 years ago in 2015, when all the hundreds of thousands of refugees came to Sweden, the public sector, the local authorities, the cities, and the region couldn't really respond to the demands that were out there. It was lots, thousands of people just coming in every day. But you see the civil society organizations, the Red Cross, Save the Children, and other kind of organizations, they just stepped up and started to work and started to organize voluntary groups. It also, new groups were formed in Facebook, and instantly, in just some hours, people were just out there working. And this was kind of a wake-up call for local authorities, and they realized that civil society is something we can really that we really need to collaborate with. We can really respect them, and they are important. So this was kind of a wake-up call, because Swedish local authorities and regions, they have for many years now looked upon themselves as the one and only that can really solve public issues. But this time they couldn't. So sometimes it's needed to have this kind of crisis and chaos to just make people wake up. And it was an inspiration. I just want to mention the experiences of 10 years of this national agreement, and there are some learnings here. It has become an inspiration and kind of a prototype for local and regional dialogues. It creates trust. I really can testimony it does. When you meet more and more, and when you're starting to have these kind of conversations, what is important, what do we need to deal with, what can I learn about you, and what can you learn about me, we start to connect and build networks and interaction across the organizational and sectoral boundaries. So we have really much more confidence in the civil society capacity. And we can see that they are innovators and they contribute to the local welfare, of course. And we can also see the importance. But by their example, they have showed us that they are really accountable. So we see that we really need to have this kind of co-creative dialogue and processes. So we start to build partnerships more and more now. Local authorities, we are having a project national for many municipalities, and they are learning how to build these kind of partnerships, how to solve difficult issues together with organizations. And in some places there are new community centers, new civil society centers where people are really when they are training and developing new ideas, and when they are where they can mobilize when things happen. And I can see also in local areas, local authorities start to form collaborative systems together with civil society organizations and other kind of stakeholders. So there is a lot of things going on, little by little. You can't see it over the night, but it happens little by little, just by doing this, just by practicing a new kind of relationship. There is another question, I think. Is it Lucia? You wrote something, but and Natalie has also written something. Is it questions? Is there?
Yeah, my question was a little bit in relationship to, because in Sweden none of the participatory processes are mandatory by law, right? And all participatory processes are organized by the municipalities by their free will, because they want to do that. And maybe this agreement is something that is necessary also to kind of coordinate how to work with the participatory processes. Just a thought. And then Natalie says, this makes me think of the importance of organization with... Yeah, do you want to read it, Natalie? Thank you.
Yeah, well, makes me think of the importance of professionalization of civil society, because many times, well, in Sweden, civil society organizations are organized in a very professional way. There are individual organizations that go together in networks, and they work together, and they have a representative role vis-à-vis the political institutions. This often lacks in countries like Colombia, so there needs to be political support for civil society to organize themselves under thematical representative networks, so that they can speak with one voice and, you know, represent a big part of civil society by just one umbrella organization, for example. Because it's a very hard business to go into decision-making procedures. The spaces that are opened up by politicians need to be aware of that, and they need to also adapt to the kind of organizations that exist. Yeah. And, well, so, after all, it's about the support, the political support for civil society to organize themselves. This should be financial support.
I just want to speak with one voice, that the civil society organizations, when last counted, they were about 240,000 organizations in Sweden. It's a lot. They can't speak by one voice. It's just impossible. And even in the local level, you can't really ask them to speak in one voice, because some of the organizations doesn't agree at all with each other. They're actually on the different parts of what to do. They can't really agree at all. So it's important you shouldn't force organizations to speak with one voice, because it's not really their thing to do. It's important that they keep the diversity. But what you can do is when you identify an issue you want to have a conversation about, you can just have an open invitation. And the ones that are coming to the meeting, they are the ones that are really, really interested in the question. So that's the way of self-organizing. Who should we talk to? But it should be an open invitation. I think so. But there are many, many questions. I think I should just move ahead just to mention there are some local and regional agreements and dialogue processes going on, and some are really good and some are not that good. And it's about quality. Some are really qualitatively good and some are not that good. So you need really to practice and to train to have really good methods and ways to have this kind of dialogue meetings. It's not that easy in the beginning. You need to practice. In Sweden, the last year, since about 5, 6, 7 years, we are really interested nowadays in users and patients as active co-creators. We look about more and more. We look upon patients and users of welfare services as experts in a way. We think they know a lot that we didn't thought about before. We thought we knew everything because we thought we were the experts inside the city hall. Nowadays we start to think about patients as experts in their own lives. So we have been starting to really listen to patients and to citizens, users in different ways. And we feel this is important. And suddenly, little by little, we are learning more about how to really have a real efficiency when we are delivering services, because we start to listen to who we are there for. I think I should stop here. I think we should move over to the other presentation, and it's about Learning Village. Is it okay for you?
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Do you need a break, or should we move on?
Go.
Move on.
Yeah, I think it's the best to go on. Yeah.
Okay, I do that. So I try to change. No. Okay, where is my share recently? Oh, here it is. Wow. Let's go to the start of this document. It's about a way of having dialogue processes, a way of having conversations that matter together with citizens, together with civil society. And it's a format for gatherings and for continuing building of relationships that we have called Learning Village, a village that learns.
Ana-Karin, this could be said, as you said, like one of the methodologies to be used to identify and prioritize and all to answer with the questions of Patricia and Fabian, right?
Yeah, it could be used. You can, as you listen, maybe you can see some connections here. Yeah. So let's start. What is a learning village? It is kind of a gathering or a serial of meetings, and the intent is to create a space, a safe space, or you can call it a safe container, where people feel free to share their personal experiences and what they have, what kind of personal insights they have, share them together with others, learn to listen, learn and contribute in conversations that really, really matters. So it aims to encourage a wider range of stakeholders to participate in this kind of gathering. And the idea is to involve community, to get involved in community initiatives, to increase the diversity of participants, and also enhance opportunities for collective learning and decision making. So this is a way to start to build connection in the local community, in the local society. And it all started with the EU project. I learned to know a guy from Scotland, Colin Campbell, and also another guy from Austria, up in the Alps, and he's called Manfred Hellriegel. And all of us was very, very interested in social capital, in how to build trust, how to build relationship. And we created what we called a learning village for some days in Scotland in 2013. And it turned out so well that we realized that it could be a bigger project. And maybe we should document it in a way. So we got money from EU, and then we created 3 pilot learning villages. Another one in Scotland, in the local community in the city district of Glasgow. And the second learning village in the city district of Gothenburg. Both of these city districts has really huge social problems. Criminality and shootings and things going on. So it was really difficult areas. And the third place we created a learning village was in Dornbirn in Austria. And, yeah, this was a really interesting experience, and it happened now last year in 2016, and it is documented in this English report. I don't know, have you got it from Lucia? Yeah. So you can take a look in it. Yeah. What were you saying, Lucia?
Yes, I sent it together with the other document to Pierre, and so everybody, I think, has received.
Good. But the idea of the whole project was to create a format of meetings, or a serial of meetings, how to create really a village that learns how to build bridge over the gap between the public sector and civil society. And yeah, it was all about this. So I think I just move ahead. I want to say some words about the theory and the models we are using. Start with, you can have, I want to say some words about the usual mechanistic systems that we are all very acquainted with. I, for myself, exist in a mechanistic system and very bureaucratic and hierarchic organization. And in the top we have a CEO, and we have a lot of departments, and people are, as me, I'm somewhere in the middle of this structure, this hierarchic structure. And normally, when you are in this kind of structure, you don't have that much communication with the other lines, the other parallel lines. You just communicate from top to bottom and back again to the bottom. So the idea is that the information should go up to the top, and that you get order from the top to the bottom. And this is kind of hindering learning together. this isn't very useful if you are going to create something new, some new thoughts, some new connections. If you want to create something that is more complex, that just simple questions or rule-based question. If you want to dig into a new area and you need to connect with other actors that is not in your line, it's really, really complicated. That is difficult. So these hierarchic structures are really good when you are obeying the rule, when you are rule-based, and when there already are best practices. Then it works perfectly. But when there are issues that you really, really can't solve, then it's really difficult to get a new answer. Well, I move on. Living sister on the other side, and it's what we are dealing with here when we are talking about learning villages, the learning village idea, is to build something that is useful when you need to dig into a complex issue. The network structure work really, really well when you need to connect with other aspects, other perspectives, when you need to connect to diversity. And the idea of a living system is that the living system is created because of an issue that a common issue, a common interest, or a common purpose that's in the middle. And as long as you share the same purpose, the same focus, the same idea that you want to solve together or that you want to work with together, the same purpose, that long you stick to the network, you stick to the living system. But when you get another purpose in life, for example, or in your organization, you doesn't need this kind of network anymore. So maybe you stick to another network and you form another living system around the new purpose. So it's very mobile, but it's really, really great if you want to get in touch with other aspects, other angles in an issue, in a question. Okay. I move on. This is another. And then we have the collective solution model that we have been thinking a lot about. You can see that the person here is Manfred Hellriegel, the Austrian guy. And Manfred is just terrific in formulating new models. So this is one of his models. And he's talking about this as sometimes when you ask an expert, you can get the solution at once because he or she have this deep knowledge in a certain issue. And that's fine. But other situations, you don't get an answer by only one expert or only one person. You need to gather a lot of aspects, and you need to dive under the surface and start to explore a field of where this question exists. It could be the question about refugees, such as in Sweden. It could be the question about poverty. It could be a question about the temperature increasing all around Earth. What would you do? You need to connect with other people. You need to take responsibility in this issue. You can see here it's written self-responsibility. people that are engaged in the question, they really feel for it and they really dive into it. And in that very situation, they really take self-responsibility too. And in the same way, when people are starting to build relationship and start to form groups together, to start to discuss the issue, they build trusts and they build relationship. And little by little, they start to formulate a shared vision. And maybe also they come up with some solutions that they want to try, and they test them. If it doesn't work, maybe they pick up another idea of a solution and they test the other. And suddenly they come up with a solution that works. So that is the way it works, the collective solution model.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have this model, and we have called it the deficit abundance model. And if you take a look at the first circle here, deficits, it's all about, we used to say that we used to focus on economic growth and the lack of something. It's deficits. When there is no really solution here, when we lack things, it is a demand, it is a driver for creating new solutions, new products and services. And in the next step, when we have these new services or products, we ask people to consume them. We sell them. And then we realize that there are some new deficits here. There is some new needs, or we lack something new. And we need to come up with a new solution here. We need to develop the services or come up with a new product. And then our citizens consume them. So in this circle, people are really consumers or customers. Then we have the other circle, and that is quite another logic here working. We call it the abundance circle. And that assumes that there are resources and capacities inherent in every individual and community. And so we start with the individual's strengths, talents, skills, and as people start to relate to each other, start to get to know each other, start to collaborate and see each other as resourceful people, you get more and more of abundance, more and more of richness in your community. Actually, it's kind of a magic circle because it doesn't create deficits, it doesn't create lack, but it creates a richness. Because the more you start to collaborate and trust each other, you also get in touch with all these resources that people really own have created in their lives. As resourceful people, they have talents, they have skills. Even though you are a poor person, you always have skills and resources that can be used if you start to collaborate with others. So this abundance circle creates more abundance as you move around. And when you are talking about the community, you create a competent community. The more people are collaborating and building this kind of living system, the more competence you have in the whole structure, in the network, in the community. So this is that deficit abundance model. Any thoughts, reflections? Helga. But in the second model, what drives the start of collaboration? Okay. It's simply by seeing each other. It's simply by meeting and starting to get to learn each other. That's the driver. When you see that, oh, there's a guy, he has something. He has a skill, he has a talent, he has something that we could use together. And when you start to create that relationship, you can also make use of it.
Can I speak? Yeah. But on the first model, it's like the negative situation deficit that, let's say, it drives the production of, well, products and services, and then consumption and what you explained. But on the second model, it's not clear to me what drives this. How does the model get started? In the first one, it's because of deficit, but in the second one, what gets it running?
It doesn't start out of nothing. People are social animals in a way, aren't we? We have it in our genes, but in a way we need to reconnect with this kind of gene, DNA. We have it, all of us. We just need to start to having conversations again. So that's the idea of the learning village, to create the conditions for this kind of things to happen. The deficit circle is in many ways the public sector circle also, because we have for many years created a hierarchic structure, a mechanistic idea of how the world is constructed. And we also have constructed the ideas that you need to have an expert to solve the problem. And you as a citizen doesn't have any talent, doesn't have any skills that is needed in the public sector. So this is a way to just to show that there are two different logics how to create welfare. And here in the middle, in the middle, you can see there is a little circle here. And the way, as I have learned it at least, to connect these two logics to each other is by starting to have conversations, dialogue between local authorities, municipalities, city district representatives, and common citizens, civil society organizations. That is the way to have connection to the other circle here. So you can move along here, and you can also have dialogue here, how to contribute to the welfare production of services. Any other question, or should I just move on? How many people have been engaged in these processes? Are there a maximum of persons? How many people were engaged in the learning village? In Gothenburg, there were about 90 persons engaged. In Dornbirn in Austria, there were, I think, 120 or 130 people engaged. And in Glasgow, I think it was about 80 or 90 persons too. And it was during 1.5 days. But maybe I should say some more words about how it happened. Is it okay? Well, yeah. So, as you may see how I'm resonating Learning Village is a way to grow local collaborative culture. It's a way to build a competent community. So this is our strong belief that it really works, and we have been testing it now for 4 times, and every time it worked very well. We have learned some things that is important to think of when you are designing and when you are creating a learning village, and I will return to these issues later. Okay, theoretical aspect. How do we facilitate this kind of safe space where people really can express themselves and feel safe enough to be themselves, to be authentic? I think it's important to learn how to design a learning village step by step. You need to have a starting phase when you really create this kind of safe container where people feel safe rather instantly. And there are certain methods where you do it. It's in the divergent phase. It's the phase when you're opening up an issue. Maybe the main question for the whole learning village could be, how could we create a bridge between our local authority and our citizens, because we lack trust here, and we have it in Sweden. So that could be a proper question. How do you build a bridge between the public sector and the citizens? So in the beginning, the first phase, you gather and you open up that question, and it's a divergent phase when it's kind of a brainstorm. You need to open up every ideas that comes up. It's okay. You really need to welcome all ideas that come. And the more you open up the process during this phase, the more you open up it, the more ideas you get. And the more individuals, the more angles you open up for, the wider, the bigger is the field of ideas that comes. So if you are
Ana-Karin?
a politician, yeah.
Fabian is asking, maybe because it's so relevant at this moment, Fabian is asking if there is any criteria for inviting people. Do you invite individuals of any kind, or do you open up for civil society leaders, or has there been any precondition or any selection process to actually participate in this Learning Village meeting?
When we have been doing the invitation, we have just been very careful about the inviting question, because the inviting question, the headline, need to be a burning issue that people really are concerned about. And it also should be a question that where you could be part of it, where you could be co-creative, not only delivering demands to the politicians, but it should be, for example, how can we together build the city that everybody wants to live in? Or it could be, how could we together create an environment that doesn't hurt our children? It is something about inviting people to take responsibility. So it's very important how you formulate the question. But by that said, it should be an open invitation. And it should be, you should be very careful that you get the people that are really engaged, that come freely. They shouldn't be demanded to go there. They should be freely coming. It could be single citizens and it could be organizations. Everybody that really want to engage in the question and would like to contribute should be welcome. in a way.
And
But
Fabian,
yeah.
Fabian continues to ask, and who realizes the invitation, and how is it done? Like newspaper, I don't know who invites, and how is the invitation done?
I will say some words about it soon, by the end of this presentation, because I will say some words about the technicalities. Is it okay to wait a little bit, and then we can take up the question again?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's no problem.
Okay. I was talking about the divergent phase, and it's an open up of different issues and ideas that comes, references, reflections, whatever experiences that people have related to the issue. And then come the emergent phase. You can see here in the middle. And during this phase, you have a lot of ideas, and then you need to create a process, a phase where people can start to connect ideas with each other, when people can start to go under the what do you say, yta. Yeah, sorry.
Surface.
Yeah, surface. When people start to go under the surface and start to connect. And sometimes you even during this phase need to kill your own darlings because they doesn't fit to the work you need to do together. Maybe you need to just let go of your own darlings and start to listen to others' ideas. So you need to create some dialogue methods here where people start to connect with each other a little bit deeper than in the beginning. And the third phase is the convergent phase. It's when you start to see some threads and start to see maybe some solutions, and then it's rather fast. You go for the goal. You see the clear goal and you can go for it. It's just a closing phase. Okay, and then you have some tools, some methods to do this closing together also. And so now we come into the practicalities of the learning village. You need to prepare the space and you need to prepare the room. Preparing the space is to identify what kind of methods that are really suitable for the different phases in the process. And if you are reading this report, you can see step by step how we created it. I can't go into all the details in the process just for 1 hour. I guess we would need to use a couple of days at least just to really get to know how to work this way. But you need to find out what kind of methods are most suitable in each step of the process. And you also need to create a space, a room, where all this can happen. As you see on the picture, we have drawn a map of what will happen during the learning village. Here is a welcome, and then you have a phase when you do the check-in, and then you have a teach, and after the teach there is lunch, and you see step by step you create some kind of visual map how people will walk step by step during the day, so people understand and can take part and be prepared what will happen. And you also need to decorate the room, and you need to set up the tables and the chairs in the proper way to suit the different methods. It's very important how to prepare with space and beauty. Check-in and check-out. As it's written here, it's really an important phase, the check-in. It's a way to welcome people, to letting people in, and to start to create this kind of safe space So by letting everybody sit in a circle, for example, it's a way to be on the same level. If you are sitting in front and everybody's online in front of you, it is not on the same level. You create some kind of distance. But by sitting in circle together, both the leaders, the politicians, and also the citizens and the representatives, civil society, activists, whatever, everybody sitting together, everybody have their initial say, who they are, why they have come to this gathering. Could be a simple question, why did you answer the call? Why did you want to step into this learning village? So when everybody have their say, you start to build a structure, a horizontal structure, and you start to build a living system, actually, very concrete. And it's very, very important. And you can do it in many, many ways. Here you have people, I think they are about 70 in the rooms, and everybody have their say, their name, their organization, and why they have chosen to come. And in our design of the learning village, we always have this start in a circle, and then we have a context cafe. And a context cafe is simply meeting around cafe tables, more or less 4 and 4. 4 people around each table, and starting to explore questions about what matters in the community. For example, a question, what is a good local community for you? What is it? It could be a simple question like that. And then you have a conversation about 20 minutes, and in the next step you shift table, one stay and the other move to other tables, and get to learn what others think about a good community. And little by little you get a common idea of what contains a good society, what contains a good community, a local community or local society. And you can gather by post-its, you can gather lines, words of what is it? What is a good community for us in this room? If you have 100 citizens and representatives in the room, you actually have a really nice picture of what could be a good society, a local society. So this is a way to create the context together. And you set it up and everybody can see what you have created together. And the next step in this design, we used to have appreciative inquiry. And it's simply about starting to tell each other, tell small short stories about experiences when it really works. When, for example, a collaborative initiatives in my community, in my neighborhood, when it worked. Start to tell these kind of experiences for each other and to each other, and then start to pick out the threads. What was it? What kind of mechanisms made it work? So this is a way to inquire what is the strength in our local community. And you also gather all these insights and put it up on the wall afterwards. So people can really see that they have gained some insights together. And you can also cluster them. So you together collectively create a picture of what could be done. What do we really already have as strengths in our local community, and what could be built on? And everybody owns it afterwards. They have been talking about it, all of them. So everybody owns the insights. It's a common ownership. And then we used to have storytelling. So we used to pick some people in the community, in the group, and ask them to get ready for having, for giving their story of an example of collaboration that should be very personal, a personal experience. And we ask them to have them to tell this story for about 20 minutes or 25 minutes most. And during this story takes place, the audience, we used to divide in maybe 4 or 5 storytellers and gather smaller groups around them. And in these smaller groups, we have some questions prepared and ask people to listen for different threads in the stories. It could be, what did you hear in the story about leadership? How you as a leader could help create collaboration. Or another question could be, what did you hear in this story about turning points or defining moments when everything was turned in a new direction? And another question could be, what obstacles did you hear in this story? And what can we learn about how to overcome obstacles? So you give different persons different listening threads. And after the story is told, they give their reflections, what they did here. And the interesting thing is when you do this collective story harvest, as we call it, everybody listens very, very carefully. Everybody listens very focused. So it's an extreme way of learning, collective learning. And you can pick up some highlights from these stories, and you can bring it back to the big group, to the big circle, and present them. You can have some common highlights and ask people to harvest from different groups, and so you can just cluster them also in the big group afterwards. So this is a way of learning in a very effective way, and it's old-fashioned. It is the oldest way how humankind have been learning since day one, I guess. Storytelling is fabulous. It's just amazing. And the interesting thing is it doesn't only connect to your mind, but also to your heart. So people often get very, very touched when they sit and listen to these personal stories. Yeah. And after the whole process, and people have been learning together and getting to know each other, and little by little people are starting to think of what to do. What should we do here in our community? What should we do together? And then in the end of the learning village comes the moment when you can propose an initiative, a project, an initiative. It should be about collaboration. It should be about the issue about, in this case, building bridge between the local authority and the civil society citizens. So it should be some project that is about collaboration. And what happens next is that people, you can see on the picture here, people are stepping up. They're taking a paper and they are writing their initiative and they present it. I want to start to see if we could form a project here. It doesn't need to cost anything. It could be something that you really make when you really make use of people's skills and abilities and talents in the local community. It doesn't need to cost anything. But it should be an initiative where you involve more people. And then we have this, what we call a pro-action cafe, and it have a certain methodology where step by step start to dig into what is this kind of initiative and yeah, what is the purpose underneath? What is the driving forces? Why should we do this? And in the next step, you have conversations with new people with your initiative, and it all is about what is missing. What do you need to bring in more? What other things need to be connected to this idea? And in the third round, you make 3 rounds with different participants around you at your table. So in the third round, it's about what would be the next wise step in this project, in this initiative. And you get lots of ideas. And then you have this template where you formulate what you have learned together with all the participants that helps you out during the Pro-Action Cafe. And you have a report, and you also have some things thinking about what would be the good next step. So this is the end of the learning village. And by then you have also created a lot of new friends, new connections, new ideas, and new knowledge about the local community, but also about different organizations and different persons. So you have in a way created this kind of living system during, as we have been doing it, during 1.5 days. But I guess this could be made also by only a day. If you design it carefully, it could be done. Okay. I see the time is running up. I just want to mention there is a planning and structuring of the learning village, and you need to have an initial preparation where you define the need. What is the need? What is the burning question? What would be the purpose for this learning village? It should be really, really a burning issue for the local community, for the local society. And you also need to identify what kind of principles do we need to have in this work. Who should be the callers here? Should it be only me? No, I don't think so. I need to have partners from civil society because I represent the authority. So I need to connect with people from civil society. Okay, and then you move ahead to the pre-learning village. And then it's the period when you need to learn how to create this kind of methods, how to make use of this kind of methods from check-in to cafe to Pro-Action Cafes and so on. So you need to learn how to do these methods, and you need to build capacity. You need to form a local hosting team containing both authority representatives and people from the local civil society. And then you need to think about the logistics and all this, and space and beauty and everything. And during the learning village, then you practice all you have learned about how to make use of these methods. And you need to train to become a really good host too, to live as you are learning. And you need to take care of the outputs, all the results, or the huge harvest you get. And post-learning village, you need to do following up. You need to follow up all the emerging projects. And you also need to think about what would be the next wise step for us in our society, in our local society. And I guess it would be a good idea to invite people, different stakeholders, to be partners in the next wise step. So you don't sit alone as a local authority, because that is not wise when you have already created this kind of living system. Okay, learning village leadership, some words about that. You need to identify when you have a situation when you can create this kind of learning village. You are the initiator if you are the leader, so you need to set a mandate and the scope for this process. And you also need to protect it. You need to defend it, because there are many people that would say, oh, what is that for? Is it really useful? So you need to defend and really defend this safe container when it takes place. And you need to put emphasis on good design and methodology. And if you are going to participate in the process, you need to be one of everybody else. You need to do it in the same terms as everybody else. Take care of the results, of course, and create a broad ownership. Okay, there are some summing up and insights that you can learn about how to prepare this and how to really shape dedication and shape follow-up of the learning village. But I think I stop here because the time is running up, and I guess there are maybe some questions. So
Helga asked one question there below.
Okay. Are the questions for all in the small group? Wait.
Sorry, this is regarding when you were talking about the storytelling methodology. You said small groups were created, someone would tell a story, and then some questions would be asked. I was wondering if, I understood that the stories were different, but if the questions that you asked were the same, or, I mean, well, yeah, I'll stop there.
Yes, I understand. If we are, for example, we asked in Scotland, we asked people to tell stories about their experience of collaboration in a small situation or innovative situation or whatever, but it should be personal. And someone told the story about the street party where everybody was collaborating. Another person told their life story about collaboration in different situations, but also sad things. A third person told her story about going to another country and whatever, but it was all about collaborating and building this kind of structure. So we could use the same question in all the different stories, actually, but the question should be formulated in a kind of on that level, so it could be used in different contexts. Other questions?
I think a little bit just seeing Fabian's question of who actually is it the local government that invites the people to participate, and how are the means to do it?
This is a very delicate situation, the very start of how to create a learning village. You need to have, as it's written here, you need to have a dedicated local authority. They really need to mean it. they need to be authentic when they want to form a learning village. And they need to think very carefully if they are up to it. And when they have decided that they are up to it, they need to understand the whole process so they don't cut it in the middle. But by that, saying that, the next step is to start to invite some actors in the civil society that is, in a way, umbrella person, not just for their own organization, but really are kind of network builders. Do you understand?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I have one more question, maybe in regards to how can one create an atmosphere when not traditional, like the traditional person that always speaks is the one that leads? How can you open up for example, women or different ethnical groups or etc., more vulnerable groups to actually have a saying in these kind of processes?
The big question is to get them into the room, because when you have got everybody into the room, you can make use of these really good methods to create the environment where everybody speaks. So you can create one-to-one conversations. When you ask people in this appreciative inquiry, you can ask people to sit 2 and 2, and it could be a young lady or an older lady or whoever, and you ask them to tell one story from their life about a good society, and then you have opened the door in a way, and you have created in a way a small safe space for these two persons. So it's in the methods to create, where you can create the safe space, but you need to get them into the room, and that's the crucial thing. The methods helps us very good, and it also helps in what do you say, it also helps not getting all the people that used to speak all the time. They can't. Because when you are passing on a talking stick and say, when you hold the talking stick, you can speak. But if you are not holding the talking stick, you can listen. And when you pass it on, the people that all the time talks, they can't. Because they are not obeying the rule. And everybody can say, uh-oh, we have a rule here. So there are some simple techniques to get everybody to talk and to get everybody to feel a little bit safer than they used to do. Okay.
Great, thank you so much, Ana-Karin. Are there any other questions, or because otherwise I want to tell everyone that we recorded this, so you can look at it again, and we will it will be available. Also, Pierre and Andrea and Natalie, they all have the documents that Ana-Karin has referred to, and they are downloadable in the internet. And yeah, well, for me, it's more to say thank you so much to Ana-Karin, and if you have any last words, Ana-Karin.
Yes, thank you, Lucia. I just wanted to add the last page. You can see there are some words about participatory leadership theory and core methods. And if you go into that web page, The Art of Hosting, you can learn a lot about this and all the details. And there are trainings. There are even trainings in Latin America if you want to learn get a deep learning about how to host these kind of meetings. You can go to a training. maybe there will be a training in Colombia also. So just take a look at the web page, the articles. Thank you, everybody. You're welcome to make contact if you want to. Thank you for today.
Thank you so much, Ana-Karin. Andrea, do you have any, or anyone has any last comments? No?
No, thank you. No.
Okay, then perfect. Thank you so much, then, Ana-Karin. Thank you for all of you that participated, and we'll see you next time with Bernard. I think it was the 12th of July. Thank you so much, Ana-Karin.
Okay,
take care.
bye.
Have a nice midsummer.
You too. Bye.
Bye.